Hi friends, welcome to IIBS IAS Academy YouTube channel. I am Ashok, Assistant Professor at IIBS IAS Academy, and I have been training from UPSC aspirants since the past 4 years. In this YouTube channel, we will be covering all the issues important for UPSC Civil Services Examination and also for the state public service examinations. Please do like, share, comment and do subscribe to our channel. Thank you. Good morning everyone. The topic we are going to discuss today is National Green Tribunal. And the reason why we are discussing National Green Tribunal is, it is important for current issues because the National Green Tribunal has completed its 10 years, right? So, which is very important and we can anticipate a question from the National Green Tribunal. But what is National Green Tribunal? With the name Tribunal, we can understand it is a judicial body, right? So, with the word Tribunal, we can understand it is a judicial body. But what does it do? What justice does it bring forth? So, National Green Tribunal was actually for environmental damage control, right? So, if a person is damaging the environment, so if an industry is damaging the environment, so if the case is filed against him, the National Green Tribunal will take care of it, right? This is the common sense. So, we will in detail know about the National Green Tribunal. The National Green Tribunal has completed 10 years of its time, right? And the NGT is the statutory and quasi-judicial body established under the National Green Tribunal Act of 2010, right? It was established by the National Green Tribunal Act of 2010 and it is a statutory, means, so we have two different bodies, constitutional bodies and the statutory bodies. So, when you are talking about the constitutional bodies are the ones which are drafted in the constitution, which are enforced directly through the constitution. And statutory bodies are the ones which are made through law by the legislature, right? It is a statutory and a quasi-judicial body, right? And it aims for effective, what is the main purpose of this National Green Tribunal? It aims for the effective and expeditious disposal of the cases relating to environmental protection as we discussed. So, the main objective, when you talk about the environment is actually protected under Article 21. Right to safe environment, right to safe environment, it is under the ambit of the right to life and personal liberty. So, right to healthy environment, right to safe environment is also the fundamental right. So, because it has to be protected, the environment has to be protected. So, for that, for the effective and expeditious disposal of the cases related to the environmental protection are taken by the the National Green Tribunal, right? And conservation of the forests and other natural resources. And ultimately the conservation of the forest and other natural resources also comes under the National Green Tribunal. Why? Because the forests are very important for the environmental protection. So, if the forest or the biodiversity is lost, so obviously all the animals will be affected and ultimately the entire land will turn into a barren land. The next one, the tribunal is not bound by the Code of Civil Procedure or the Indian Evidence Act. So, when the case is actually filed in the court, we follow the due process of law, right? We go with the due process of law. That means whatever the procedure that was actually established, that procedure we will enforce, right? So, we have different sections. We have the Criminal Procedure Code and the Civil Procedure Code, and as per the code, if a crime is committed, as per this particular code, we have a specific punishment, right? But the National Green Tribunal will not take them into the consideration. It works as per the natural justice. It is guided by the principles of natural justice, which is very important, right? The National Green Tribunal is not bound by the Code of Civil Procedure 1908 and the Indian Evidence Acts of 1872, but it is guided by the principles of natural justice. The point is very important. Next, what is the structure of NGT? What is the structure of NGT? It consists of a chairperson, judicial members and expert members. There are three different types of members that are actually present in the body of National Green Tribunal: the chairperson, the head and the judicial members and the expert members. The chairperson or the judicial member of the tribunal should be the judge of the Supreme Court of India or the Chief Justice of High Court, right? This is the qualification that is required to be the chairperson of the judicial member of National Green Tribunal, and these members are not eligible for reappointment, right? So, once the member of this particular panel, so they are not eligible for any other reappointment. The new members has to come in. And what are the powers it has? The next important point, we have to understand the powers the National Green Tribunal has, and it has the power to regulate its own procedure, right, how it acts, and what are the structure, what are the principles on which it acts. So it can regulate its own affairs, and an order or the decision or an award of a tribunal is executable as a decree of a civil court, and an appeal against the order or award of the National Green Tribunal can be filed in the Supreme Court, usually within 90 days, right. So if the National Green Tribunal gives a verdict, it is actually bound. And what status the National Green Tribunal verdict has in the India is, it is same as the order of the civil court, and whatever the appeal that is against the order of the National Green Tribunal can be filed only in the Supreme Court, right, can be filed only in the Supreme Court within the 90 days of verdict. And the tribunal is mandated to dispose applications or the appeals within the 6 months of filing, which is very important, because when the environment is being damaged, so we cannot keep the case for a very long time. There are many pending cases in India. That's why we have constituted a special body to deal about the environmental related activities. So in this case, so what we are looking for is within the 6 months of filing the complaint, the verdict has to come, right? It is a time bound manner. And National Green Tribunal by an order can provide relief or relief and compensation to the victims of the air pollution and different environmental damages. So in the National Green Tribunal, there are the different laws that are actually imbibed in. So as per that, it can provide relief and the compensation for the victim, and restitution of the property damaged. So if the property is damaged, so it may ask for the restitution, and restitution of the surroundings of such vicinity or the areas, whatever the damaged areas are actually there. So the person who damaged has to reconstruct it, and he has to compensate for it, right. This is how the National Green Tribunal works. Next one, what is the jurisdiction of NGT? When you are talking about the jurisdiction of NGT, there are about 7 laws that are under National Green Tribunal. What are they? The Water Act, the Prevention and the Control of the Pollution Act of 1974, and the Amendment Act 1977, and the Forest Act of 1980, and the Air Act of 1981, and the Environmental Protection Act of 1986, and Public Liability Insurance Act of 1991, and Biodiversity Act of 2002. These are the laws which are under the ambit of, under the jurisdiction of National Green Tribunal. So whichever the case which falls under these things will be directed to the National Green Tribunal. Next one, what are the achievements? So is it really important to have a specific body for the environmental damage? So what does it actually achieve? What did it actually achieve? And the very first thing is speedy environmental justice, as we discussed, 6 months, right? All it takes, right? Speedy environmental justice, which is very important, and strengthen the concept of environmental justice, right? Ultimately, the environment has to be protected. If the environment is damaged, we cannot survive in that environment. So the environmental justice can be strengthened by establishing a separate statutory body and the quasi-judicial body like National Green Tribunal, and technical judgments, right? So because of the National Green Tribunal, we know what is the procedure that has to be followed, what are the scientific methods to assess the environmental damage. So all this has actually come forth only after the establishment of the National Green Tribunal, and create a new breed of legal practitioners, right? So now we have the experts, the lawyers who are experts in the environmental laws. Previously they were not there. Now because of the establishment of a separate body, we have the specific lawyers who deal about only the environmental damage related cases. Next, what are the challenges present in India? The next important challenges is, the very first one is the lack of institutional mechanism, right, to ensure the compliance of its orders. So once it gives the orders, how they are following the orders. So for that, there is no particular kind of institutional mechanism. So that's why it is one of the challenges the National Green Tribunal is facing. And the next one, generic orders. This is one problematic thing that is happening with the National Green Tribunal. So what it is doing is, once the case has come, it is ordering a specific authority to look into the matters. About 700 of such cases were actually present since 2018. So if it is asking just another person to look, it is not actually a verdict, right? So those generic orders are actually a bigger challenge for the environmental protection, and large number of dismissals. So most of the cases are being dismissed, right? Then whatever the environmental damage that has happened, it is not taking those particular cases into the consideration. And the next one is the restricted jurisdiction. So there are two important laws which are not in the control of National Green Tribunal, which are the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 and the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Act of 2006. These are the two important acts, and these two important acts are kept away from the National Green Tribunal. And as National Green Tribunal, the verdicts are seen, the most of the national media and the people of India are actually seeing that as just a speed breaker to the development. See, it is an obstacle to the development. Why? So if the development has to happen, the new land has to be acquired, the forest has to be cleared. So all these things the development cannot happen without these things. So it is actually seen as the obstacle to the development, and there are many vacancies which are actually to be filled. So these are the challenges that are being faced by the National Green Tribunal. Thank you. Please do like the video, and if you have any queries, please put down in the comments below, and we will be making videos on those areas. And please click on the bell icon and do subscribe to our channel. Thank you.